welcome to the Margin Business Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Today we have Andrew Maff. So Andrew, it's amazing to have you here today. You are an e-commerce marketing expert and the BlueTuskr founder. BlueTuskr, we will talk about this later, what it does, how it does it, and why is it at the place where it's supposed to be right now. But I want to focus a little bit more about you in the beginning, and then we can work ourselves up through all the space until we're going to be at BlueTuskr at the end. So Andrew, please tell us a little bit more about yourself, because I mean, being a Forbes Council member, you have your own show, the Ecom Show podcast. You're the Ecom Show podcast host. There is a lot to talk about. Please, let's just start from the beginning, and then we work ourselves through.
Yeah, happy to. All right, so where do we start here? So I've been in the e-commerce marketing industry for a little over 15 years now.
Oh,
it was actually it's actually
rare.
one of my it was basically one of my first, like you call like your first big boy jobs. My father actually acquired a company that wasn't online, because obviously 15 years ago it wasn't really the thing. Bought that company, knew we wanted to take it online, took it online, and so I came in and kind of helped from like a marketing perspective, and that's where I kind of first got my chops. Favorite story about that place, he was actually offered to sell their product on Amazon right when they stopped like just doing books, and he turned it down, and it's my favorite thing to make fun of him about. That was yeah, no, I wouldn't be. I would assume that I would be retired by now if he actually took them up on that, but I'm not, so here I am. Then after that, was in-house at a couple places. Then I started my first agency when I was in college, and was focused on a mix of retail as well as a little bit of e-commerce. And then as time went on, I really started to cater to the e-commerce side. Then in, I think it was mid 2016, started another agency with a partner of mine. We exited that in late 2019. And then I started BlueTuskr in January of 2020, right before COVID got all fun and e-commerce was like gangbusters. So we were just having a good time for the first couple of years there. So now I'm the founder, CEO of BlueTuskr. We're a full service marketing company for e-commerce sellers. I'm also the host of the Ecom Show and the co-author of the Click and Conversion e-commerce newsletter.
Wow, that's a lot. That's really good. So let's start somewhere at the last agency. You said you exited it. Maybe you can you can talk about that a little bit more. Does it mean that you sold the agency you have built up in the past already?
Yeah, so I was originally born and raised South Florida, and the wife got an opportunity to move to New York City, and for a job opportunity that she had. And I was like, okay, at the time I owned an agency, I was like, I can go wherever I want. So we had moved. And then I ended up, I was the agency I had, which was the one out of college. I ended up partnering with family, and just don't ever suggest doing that. So we kind of just, I had them buy me out, and we kind of went our separate ways. And then I went in-house for a little while. And so that was where I really got back into deep into the e-commerce industry. I was working with, at the time, you might know him, Chad Rubin. He's one of the founders of Skubana, and he's obviously one of the founders as well of his own e-commerce brand. So I worked with him for a while, and we worked in it was kind of like a shared space, but there was a bunch of other just like D2C-esque brands in there. And I had met this guy who was working under the same roof, and was kind of consulting with him a little bit. And then we started chatting and ended up starting an agency right there that basically kind of got spun out of that. So we obviously already had, a lot of experience in the D2C side. Partner with him, I was, minority partner, was there for a little while. He was an older guy, and, by late 2019, he's like, I just don't want to do the agency business anymore. So I was like, it's your call. You have majority. And so we We sold that to a public company in 2019. I stayed on until January of 2020, when I left and started this.
Okay. Okay. And then COVID obviously hit
Yeah,
very,
and then
yeah.
that came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how was this for you? I mean, you just started a new agency and suddenly this hit. So you were neither prepared to, I mean, obviously you wanted to scale, but you were not prepared. There was nothing, when the agency starts, obviously you have a few clients, but it's not like, wow, we're going through the roof, at the, in the first few months. I mean, did it
Yeah.
hit in the first few months directly?
No, not in the first few months, but definitely by the end of the year. One of the things
Okay.
that I've always catered to for really any brand that I work with is I do a lot of content marketing. So while I'm the host of the Ecom show, it was actually at the time, as you and I were talking about before we started this podcast, like I had a lot more free time during COVID. So I was doing a daily podcast. And so
Oh, okay.
I had episodes going out every day. I had articles getting published. Like I was just pumping out as much content as I could. And because COVID had happened and everyone was spending so much time online, I just happened to hop in and catch that wave right when it happened. So by the end of the year, BlueTuskr had taken off. By the end of 2022, so we were 2.5 years in, I've already scaled the agency larger than the one we had exited. So we kind of came in and really hit the ground running. I also took a little bit of a different approach. The agency I was with prior to this was very focused on Amazon. We primarily worked with Amazon sellers. Amazon advertising was a really big thing that we did. It was one of our top services. And one of the things I started to realize, especially as COVID started to take off, was that sellers really need to diversify and not be so reliant on just one channel. Amazon, as well as Walmart or eBay or Wayfair or Chewy or wherever else you are fantastic acquisition channels, but being solely reliant on them is difficult. In fact, right before this, I was doing an episode for the Ecom show, and I was speaking with someone who knows, who's working with a brand who is one of only a handful I know of doing 9 figures on Amazon. And they changed their credit card. They changed their credit card because, advertising this time of year, it caps out. So you just got to switch your credit card out. Amazon, for whatever reason, thought it was fraud, completely shut their account down. Wow. So when you're doing just, 100 million plus on Amazon, and then all of a sudden you completely get shut off, being so reliant on just one channel like that just doesn't really make any sense. Terrible, and so yeah. I came in with BlueTuskr and I was like, you know what? We've got the knowledge of the Amazon side, but we also have the knowledge of the off Amazon side. There's got to be a way to merge these two worlds. And so it really started to focus on more omni-channel marketing strategies. How do I take, my off Amazon audience and actually drive them to Amazon? Sometimes if you're launching new products, that additional traffic's fantastic. Or the other way around, how do I build my brand in such a way on Amazon that the experience is great for them with as much as I can control, that I can actually get them to come to my own website? So there's ways that we try to look at manipulating the marketing strategies and the assets that these brands have to drive them either to Amazon or away from Amazon, or really whatever strategy works, because every product is completely different. So that's when we got a lot more involved with like the buy with Prime side of things. That just, came out a few years ago. Before then, we were actually making buttons ourselves. We were just custom developing them and doing what we could. So that made life a lot easier. But yeah, that's been kind of our approach, is that overarching omni-channel strategy.
Okay. That's, I think it's really interesting because what you're saying is that you really worked, actually, this is like pure service. We don't really talk about any software in the back or anything. Do you use any SaaS software or anything, or is this like pure service what you're doing?
Pure service based. We partner with a bunch of platforms that we're very familiar with. Obviously, we're Shopify partners and Klaviyo and Buy with Prime, and then you got your Google Ads and Meta and all that fun stuff. But we don't have any software that we use. There's nothing specific, that we have like some kind of specific thing that we can say it does. I find a lot of agencies create a software and like make it this big proprietary thing, when in reality it's just a fancy dashboard. And exactly. We find, I don't think it's necessary. So I think it's a lot. I like playing by the rules, the black hat stuff, the let's, kind of come around, let's try to mess with Amazon's TOS and stuff like that. Like, I'm not a fan.
No,
So
it's
I
not good.
like to, I like to play nicely with Amazon. So like when they started the buy with Prime thing, I was like, okay, let's find a way to use this. But then I always get into fights with our rep because I always tell them, like, I'm just honest with them of like, hey, there's aspects of buy with Prime that sucks, that no one wants to use this. And so there's conversations about that. There's certain products where it works great. The omni-channel strategies, sometimes their margins are not worth driving the traffic directly to Amazon. We want to focus to just off Amazon. So there's nuances, right? Every brand is different, every product is different, and every business owner is completely different. So it kind of depends on those nuances.
No, definitely. If you onboard clients, for example, and one is selling complete other product than the other one, obviously you need to understand how to market this directly, and this comes through experience as well. If you have been a seller, did you ever sell on Amazon yourself?
I did a little bit. What is it? 2023, about 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay,
I
okay,
was
the
I was
golden, still the
involved.
golden times, kind of the golden
Yeah,
times,
it was still good. It was still good times. I did it with a couple buddies of mine. We had some stuff that we did on Amazon. I am horrible at operations. You asked me
Okay.
like inventory and stuff like that. And so like it got to a point where I was like, I was leaning on the guy I was working with to just be reliant on the operational side. And I just couldn't work with him anymore. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to doing what I do best. So I went back to the agency space. But yeah, I did it for a little bit. I am actually looking at possibly getting back into it. But I'm baby stepping into that.
I would say it's a good time. It's a good time. Not maybe not necessarily the US market, but I
Mhm.
think it's a quite a good time to actually look at the market, because as everyone this it's a bit stuck from what I see from the smaller sellers, and there's a lot of improvement what we can do right now. And as well, maybe most of them didn't really understand that creating the brand is the thing. Everyone tries to sell some, I don't know, some stuff, and then it don't work, and the account gets abandoned, and then the statistics, and I think there's definitely money to make. And if we talk about that, there are so many brands out there, Andrew. I mean, it's incredible, and there is so many good brands out there, but there's as well so many brands which have absolutely no clue what they're doing.
Oh
But
yeah.
from these brands, what are your favorite brands? I mean, in general, when you look at Amazon, what are your favorite brands? Who do you think did like an amazing job over there?
Oh man. You always think of like what are the ones that kind of, I don't want to say started on Amazon, but were real heavy on Amazon and then figured out a great way to kind of diversify things. You always think of like the anchors of the world. Like, Anchor 5 or 6 years ago was one of the biggest
Yeah, monsters.
phone
Yeah.
accessories and small, and consumer electronics are a nightmare. Though the margins are
Yes.
really small,
Yeah.
it's a wildly crowded market. It's a process, and they had flawless listings. You could tell they were constantly testing things. Every time they released something new, they were testing it out with Amazon. They had, every time you were searching anything for that was even remotely in their area, you'd find their ads. I always thought they were doing a fantastic job. And then they grew to such a size that now they're also massive off Amazon, and they're probably one of the largest phone accessory, platform brands out there. So they're definitely one that, when you're trying to think of like trying to get some creative juices flowing and you're looking for inspiration, I always check out their listings and see what they're doing.
Definitely in the US, you're right. They have pretty good listings in the US. But I was looking, especially at Anchor, and there was another few brands as well of that size, which I think as well got suspended at some point. Um,
Probably.
I think I don't remember the name. Or what was the big company? They were big like Anchor, which was suspended as well. Electronics, consumer electronics. I forgot the name. But Anchor was pretty happy about that because they could take the whole thing over afterwards.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but in the European Union, such Chinese, especially the Chinese brands, I checked them out, and especially Anchor, and you see the listings are not 100%. It's like there can be improvement in the text, there can be improvement of the photos, because they were at that level, as you already mentioned, they just put these things there and they sell, But imagine they would have done a better job, for example, at the listings, they would have done even more cash. But at that point, I think they would not have been interested at this. But it's very nice to see and to analyze how they differ against the US into the European Union.
Yeah, like, to that point, that kind of comes in. There's two different types of Amazon sellers, right? You have, well, three, but I'm not going to talk about the third. You've got the ones that are very, very good at the Amazon optimizations, great listings, great A+ content, really has well-structured ads. Like, they know the system, they got it down. Then you have the other ones that have such a strong brand that even if their listings are trash and their ads are horrible, people are searching their name, so who cares? Sure. We've done work with Crayola, and we've done work with Canon, and in every single situation with them, my mind is blown. Like, I know that's a very like grandiose example. They're obviously they're almost household names in many situations, but it's still like, to have like just a single product image and like 2 bullet points and no A+ content, and yet they're still doing like hundreds of thousands of dollars with whatever product. I'm like, okay, like, could you imagine if you did this correctly and how this would look? So those are two very different things. We work with a couple sellers that are, they're well into 8 figures, but their listings and everything are like flawless. And the only reason they're beating their competitors right now is because their competitors just aren't doing it. But if some of these massive conglomerates started to really catch on with like, oh, we got to treat this just as well as we treat our website, you'll start to see all the big brands are just going to take over the Amazon space anyway. Then they'll look at aggregations and it becomes a whole thing.
No, that's definitely true, because as you know, we're now, I mean, with the whole aggregator thing, where all the brands are getting some real professional help. I mean, the ones who got now taken over from the aggregators, obviously they have a lot more resources in order to push these brands up. Now, are these resources used correctly? Yeah, we cannot really talk on this subject, but sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I can see there is definitely brands, and they take care of their brands. They try to push as much as possible into these brands, and create the listings correctly and do the whole setup correctly, and from the ones which have been taken over. Because what I see a lot less on Amazon now is like these soulless brands, I call them, where you only have like kitchen products and stuff which appear in the thousands and are sold hundreds per day, or thousands per day even. I see them a lot less, because I think they all know how dangerous it is actually to run an operation like that, and as soon as the operation stops, it's like it never existed. So I think this is changing a lot, and I think it's as well good, because we need to have some like for our eyes, I mean, I love it when there is products which I can use, which the person behind it using it already actually as well. So we have really we go into a culture, I think, where new brands are existing and these old brands getting less and less important, because now we are the creators. Actually, we create stuff, like clothing or even consumer electronics. We create our own everything. We can create so many different things, and I think this is super, super important now, because this is how we can actually compete with all these bigger monstrous brands.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think, like, even though Amazon is doing more and more to release, new functionality to help build brands, at the end of the day, unless they're going to share their data with you, which they're never going to do, it's very difficult to build a brand solely on Amazon, right? Like,
oh yes, definitely.
If you've got, use kitchen products as an example, you've got 20 different kitchen products, you got your 80-20 rule, a bunch of them sell pretty, a small amount sells pretty well, The rest is okay. Then you're like, oh, let's expand the product line. As soon as you launch a new product, it's like starting another business, because you can't benefit from your pre-existing traffic to your other listings. Yeah, you could add it into like a comparison chart on A+ or something like that. But at the end of the day, like, it's really difficult. So every time you release a new product, it's a chore. It's fighting the algorithm in the beginning. I got to pay an arm and a leg in advertising just to get traffic there to benefit from that little honeymoon period. Yeah, you can do the Vine program and crap like that, but like, it's still kind of like not really doing anything. That's why, like, our biggest thing, like when we look at trying to develop some of these omni-channel strategies, what we always do is like, we let people know, like, we're available on Amazon. We have Amazon. We are, if you, depending on margins, because sometimes it doesn't line up, Buy with Prime is available on the site or something like that. And then what we do is, as people start to use that functionality, or they engage with some of our like ads that are relevant to Amazon or something, I now have an email list segmented, or I have a pixeled group of people that I know are interested in Amazon. So what I do is, when I launch a new product, I do a big push of all those people straight to Amazon. Just screw it. Pass the site, go to Amazon. I've got like 30 or 60 some odd days to benefit from that honeymoon period. I'll give them a little bit of a discount or something like that. Nothing too crazy, but like, hey, we're announcing this early only to our Amazon purchasers. Send them straight there, get the reviews in, get the traffic in, get the sales in. Then that product from an organic perspective starts to improve. You don't have to pay so much for ads. And then you pivot that traffic back to your website. That product continues to do well on Amazon, which acts as an acquisition channel. And then you find ways to get those people to now come to your website and start shopping with you there. I think all these marketplaces are fantastic acquisition channels, but the margins are nuts, and the fight to the top is insane. And then when you get to the top, it's typical. When you're at the top, everyone's gunning out for you. So you're number one in this certain keyword, like, you're probably not going to be for very long, because someone's going to figure something out, and then you got to do it. The thing that drives me crazy about Amazon, which, as you can tell why I'm kind of venting right now, is there's so much little tiny nitpicky things that you have to keep doing and keep testing for each individual product, not for the business as a whole. When you're focused on off Amazon, you want to do those tiny little things, but the results are so much larger because it affects your entire business, not just one product. Whereas on Amazon, if you've got more than like 30 or 40 products, it's a chore, because you've got to watch every single little one and every keyword you're fighting for in your ads. You've got 500 different campaigns just for those products. Like, it's a process. So you factor in like the low margins, the hours you got to put in figuring that stuff out, the resource of people you need just to run that kind of a process. It's not easy. So being solely reliant on Amazon, and I know saying this on a Amazon heavy podcast probably isn't the smartest thing, but it's true. It's hard to be solely reliant.
I think you're completely right, and I can confirm this as well, because I mean, you gave us a really good nugget here, with the traffic, and this is really something. I appreciate that. I'm sure the listeners can learn from that, or maybe they applied already, but this is definitely something great. But when we're talking about the US marketplace, it's definitely I call it a saturated marketplace. And if somebody asks me, or customers ask me, should I begin to start on the US? I say no. If you have a lot of cash to burn, go for it, But then you compete against some really crazy Chinese sellers, which have the PPC button. They rent it out. It's completely crazy. But then I say, look, there is the UAE market, for example, or the Saudi market, which are very low entry level, and you can actually make some money on there if you know what you're doing. So these are new markets, and in a few years' time, they will be super big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got a few sellers we work with that are, in the basic ones outside of US, right? You've got like Canada. I think everyone sleeps on Canada.
Oh, Canada's good as well.
It's so easy
to mention, but yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's so easy to go from US to Canada because there's not much of a language barrier, and there's like no competition comparatively. So it's always like, to me, it's like comparing Google and Bing. It's like, you don't want to completely ignore Bing. You're not going to retire on Bing, but you can't ignore it if you're running ads on there. So it's one of those things, like you look at Canada, like that's going to keep your lights on for a while because those margins are pretty decent. Then you've got UK can be decent. Australia is usually pretty good. As you mentioned, UAE is in a good spot. Like some of these other regions, the one thing that I do love about Amazon is like its ability to help you start to test new regions is fantastic, because it's like a couple buttons and then some translations and you're more or less set up.
Oh, here we go. That's wrong. You cannot just press a button and get translation.
Well, it's over exaggeration.
I know what you mean. I know. I'm just joking. It's that's our way where we come in. With the translation, optimization, localization, keyword, SEO setup, and HEO as well for the photos and everything. So from the region to region it differs. But anyway, this we can see. I mean, I was at an event in south of Morocco a few days ago, actually. And it's very interesting because I spoke with some big sellers from here and as well from US, and they sell as well in the US. And what they do they are crazy testers, like they are off Amazon sellers, and they know what to do when it comes to Instagram specialists. It's really funny to look how they do it, and the amount of items they actually sell only through some Instagram ads of the testing. And then and the regions here is mostly like COD, is cash on delivery. So the amount they're turning around, it's really crazy, without any Amazon or anything. So only with A/B testing, without any product. I'm sure the how this goes, without any product, and then you have a product and you go and sell, and that's it. You just scale. I think that everything what goes off Amazon, same as Shopify, all the other channels, it's as well really good to do, but you need to have a team in order to run the ads, because when somebody asking me, hey, can Margin Business help me with optimization, localization, and as well Google ads and meta ads, I say, whoa, stop. No Google ads, no meta ads. This maybe I have some partners who can help you, but I won't touch that stuff, because it's a complete different game as on Amazon, for example. So yeah, it's I think diversification is the thing at the moment anyway. So that's the word I was searching for.
Yeah, like it's a very good point. And honestly, that's part of that. The complications of marketing off Amazon is really why I had started BlueTuskr, because when I was in-house, right, you would have specific agencies or people, similar to your business, that were just great at Amazon, and then they would own the entire Amazon marketplace. They would handle the ads, they'd handle listing optimizations, they'd handle all the different aspects of the Amazon side. But then you have the off Amazon side, and the difficulty with the off Amazon side is, you have people that are great at, Facebook ads, but then are horrible at Google ads. So now you need a Google ads person. Then you need a web designer. Then you need someone who knows email. Then someone who's social. And then you need someone that's SEO. And I realized when I was in-house, the biggest issue I always had is I had all these different agencies and contractors and people that I was working with, but they didn't all talk to each other. Yeah. Now, the Amazon business, it could more or less function on its own. I was putting in some omni-channel stuff, so we'd had to try to keep conversations going with them. But like Google Ads and SEO overlap so much, and I couldn't get those two agencies to work together. So it was all these difficulties of trying to get people to understand like the overall marketing strategy. So that's why I started BlueTuskr, where I was like, okay, I want to have an agency that is full service, but not one of those garbage agencies where you get like, X amount of hours from some generalist who's like trying stuff. I want to treat it like we have several different agencies. So whenever we start working with someone and they're like, oh, we need help with, SEO, Google ads, and email marketing, like, great, I've got to set up 4 different calls with you, because you need your account strategist to oversee the entire thing. Then I want you to speak with our Google ads specialist and our SEO specialist, basically like little agencies under one. And the main issue being exactly what you said, which is like, you've got to know the ins and outs of Facebook and Instagram when you're running ads. You've got to know Google changed its algorithm when you're doing SEO stuff. You've got to know how to do Google ads and how it's completely different from some of these other channels. So all those different nuances, but at the same time, you need to know the business's goals and what, the right hand's got to know what the left hand is doing. Otherwise, nothing works together. So it's bringing that cohesion into one area to actually execute on full marketing plans, as opposed to treating every little traffic channel and every little sales channel as its own business, because it just doesn't make sense that way.
No, I completely agree with you. On that point, do you have a lot of employees? I mean, in your agency? How many do
Yeah,
you?
you have to define how many. We've got collectively, including some contractors, probably around
Yeah, I would say like
35 or 40.
Oh, okay, so some like contractors, I call them as well most of the time contractors, because we don't have this employee like who is 8 hours there. You know what I mean? It's like it's not how it works. And anyway, everyone is remote. I'm not sure how it is for you.
Yeah, we're all fully remote. Everyone is either on Eastern Standard or Central Standard Time in the States. We've got like 12 or 15 employees that are like on payroll, but then the other like 20 or 30 some odd are contractors that are specialists. And because sometimes the other issue is too, like, I'm very aware, since I got, was lucky enough to be in house a bunch of times, I'm very aware of like the issues with the agency model, which is like, I'm not an expert in every single product that exists. So sometimes it does require like, okay, I have experts that know the platform and can put the strategies together, but I've got to find someone who knows the specifics of this brand to execute on some of the work. So like copywriters and things like that, You've got to know the nuances of a certain product. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to speak to it, especially complicated stuff. Like we do a pretty good amount with some sellers that do like B2B things. And so, large machinery or even like nuanced small electronics, whether they're on Amazon or not, like I need someone who knows that subject matter. Otherwise, it just doesn't get executed correctly.
No, you're completely right. Because especially when it comes to this small electronics, it's this is another level.
Oh god, or supplements. Yeah. Oh
yeah, no,
they're so complicated.
I like to take them, but I don't like to wake up and have a red account directly in my face. That's not good at all. Great, Andrew. I just wanted to ask you as well, if you would have like 5 minutes, what message would you give to the world? I mean, maybe not 5 minutes, maybe a bit less, but like a quote or something.
Oh, the first quote that came to my head, my stepmother has said this to me for so long, and in the past like 3 or 4 years of my life, it's starting to really become more and more obvious. Cheap is expensive. And it is one of my favorite quotes, because like for years I was like, what does that even mean? But then after a while, you start to realize if you are going to cheap out on something, there's a good chance you're going to have to redo it or replace it or something over and over and over again. And it ends up actually being even more expensive than just spending the correct amount of money or time on something. So it also kind of, comes with like just a flat out saying like, just don't half-ass things. But you can also look at it from a spending money perspective. Like we get a lot of sellers all the time that are on Amazon. They want to diversify. They want to try, selling off Amazon. And I always tell them, it's a jump. There's ways you can do it where you can do it safely and not too expensive. But some of these platforms have algorithms, and they're not like, with Amazon, you do have an algorithm, but you also have like, this is the keyword you want to show for, this is the bid. It's pretty straightforward, at least for sponsored products. From an off Amazon perspective, like you start factoring in Facebook, if you don't give Facebook a large enough budget to work with, it's actually going to take way longer for you to figure out what's working. And then we obviously have management fees. So I have to factor in, I go, look, because like either you're going to be paying me for a really long time to learn, or you can actually spend more money now up front, pay me for a significantly shorter amount of time, but figure out what's working and let's do this. So it's a lot of things like that. Same thing with listings on Amazon or someone's website. Spend the money and get good product pictures. Like the people who take like a picture with their phone and then post it on Amazon, they're like, I don't understand why my product's not selling. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Or like, I had this guy on Fiverr create my Shopify site, and now I can't figure out why my conversion rate's so low. Be like, because your site looks horrible. You have to have an amazing experience on your website comparative to Amazon. So you're competing with Amazon in every way, shape, or form. So you've got to put the love into your website. And if it's cheap, you're going to spend a lot of money driving traffic to a site that's going to take you a while to find out it doesn't convert. So I love cheap is expensive.
Very good. I really like this quote, because I'm exactly the same, because this is what I'm trying to explain as well in the podcast, that it's really better to invest than for example doing it yourself, or I've heard so many doing PPC, for example, yourself, or do the listings themselves. It won't work out. At the end you will pay someone to do it for you. So this is exactly the message that I'm always giving. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Yeah, I think if you're an expert in something, then yeah, you should do that. Otherwise, you should spend the time to be knowledgeable enough to hire an expert. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to know how to point out an expert. Because there's a lot of people that, have like all this content in the world, and then you talk to them and you're like, wow, you don't know what you're doing.
So yeah, cheap is expensive is definitely what I would say as well. It's like I said, I was talking with a lot of people about it, and especially when there's larger agencies, them as well. Sometimes they say, yeah, it's pricing and everything, and and the funny thing is that these agencies afterwards come back and say, okay, you know what, let's do it, and then then you actually know what already happened. They try to figure it out with a team, to hire a team somewhere, and then pay them maybe here 10, maybe here 20, and then they figured out that one was sick, one didn't want to come to work, and then that's it, everything collapsed. So they say, okay, whatever, let's go back to the agency. So yeah, so it's true, and I think you can put this as well in everyday life. I've seen this in so many. I don't know, when you buy just simple things. You buy a pen, for example, for really cheap, and that pen breaks all the time, and then you end up going to the store 10 times, instead of buying like a Mont Blanc. Let's make it very extreme, but it's true, yeah, it's really true. Premium works,
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely. So Andrew, where can anybody get in contact with you or BlueTuskr when there is interest to work with you, or just to understand more what you're doing?
Yeah, really anywhere you want. Social, pretty much any social platform. I'm at Andrew Maff, or it's just at BlueTuskr. It's BlueTuskr. Or just shoot me an email, andrew@bluetuskr.com. I'm always happy to just help out and provide some insight.
Amazing, great. I will put as well all the links that you got in the description, so if anything comes up, anyone can get in contact with you. And I think on LinkedIn you're as well pretty active on there, like I saw. Great.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, and and speak to you soon.